everyone. Welcome back. This is Excavating Depth. I'm your host, Megan Reimer. This is the podcast where we get to the heart of things that matter with empathy, compassion, and vulnerability. Thank you so much for coming back for episode 3. I feel the need to start this podcast off with a quick caveat to episodes 1 and 2. And that is, there is no illusion here. I don't want anyone to be fooled into thinking that because I live on this beautiful, lush, remote island, which I do, but that just because I live here, that life is perfect. Life is not perfect. I struggle with loneliness. I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with depression. I struggle with creativity. I struggle with engaging with people. And I miss the people that I love deeply. They're not easily accessible to me. I shared the journey of how I got here because I thought it was an important journey to share, not because I wanted anybody to be fooled into thinking that I'm just all glam, clearly living some high life and that shit is perfect. It's far from it. And I think that's what a lot of this podcast is meant to capture, is life and its imperfection. That caveat kind of lends its way into what I want to talk about today, and that's vulnerability. I share the story of how I got here because it is a vulnerable story. If anything, I actually feel being out here and having these feelings of loneliness, these feelings of depression, these feelings of anxiety, actually feel more shameful feeling them living here. There's a part of me that feels like, how dare I? How dare I have the audacity to feel these shitty feelings when I live somewhere so beautiful? I think it's just opening the curtains a little bit to the reality that just because we live in nice homes or nice places or drive nice vehicles or have nice clothes or have nice things, that's not reflective always of life and what's going on in our hearts and our souls, because things are still hard. And if anything, ironically, harder, because I can't just hop in my car and drive 20 minutes to my friend's place and feel comforted by them, or get a hug, or like see my friend's kids, or go to the park with my friend and our dogs. So I actually have to look to myself and my space to self-soothe and find comfort where sometimes people would have otherwise offered it to me. And maybe that's an opportunity for me to do that more for myself, to feel my emotions a little bit more. That doesn't mean it's not difficult. So we're under no illusions here. Let's be honest. Vulnerability. There are a few threads that connect to vulnerability that I think I will get to in later episodes. Vulnerability has just really been on my heart lately, probably because this podcast is an expression of that vulnerability. And I get really frustrated as a vulnerable person, as an empath, as an emotional person, with how the world perceives these qualities. And so often when we hear the word vulnerability, we hear weakness. I think for the majority of the world, vulnerability means like finding a weakness and plugging it, finding a weakness in a security system and resolving it, exposing a weakness and covering it up, strengthening it. Through my thesis research work and my work in the public sector and the housing sector, the term vulnerable people or vulnerable population really speaks to people who are at risk of being harmed, at risk of being taken advantage of. And so it's curious to me that somewhere at some point, English speakers also tagged the word vulnerable and vulnerability to an expression of emotion. And I think that's for one of two reasons. Either we think that expressing the emotion itself is a weakness, or we think that people who express are at risk of harm, of like exposure. And I think that's why we keep these things to ourselves, because our nervous system wants to protect us. And exposing ourselves doesn't actually put us at risk. And I have done no research into this. I probably there's some kind of like evolutionary part of the brain that's like, oh shit, telling someone I love them is just as scary as seeing a bear. And I find that very curious. I wish we had given this term a different name. I wish it wasn't rooted in perception of weakness or perception of being exposed or at risk or potentially harmed, because it doesn't translate to strength. It doesn't make anybody feel like being vulnerable is a strength, or that there is strength in sharing more. People immediately tag it to weakness. That makes it really hard to be seen and to share. Makes it really hard for other people to receive what you're sharing. And that part is necessary. We can journal or think our own thoughts and never share them, but there is a part of vulnerability that requires being seen and being loved, being seen and being connected, being seen and being comforted. That is a reason why I would do it again, because, oh, I got some connection. Someone else out there is feeling this way. I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. I'm not in isolation. And that just takes some weight off your shoulders. We just see everybody else as surface level beings. We are the only ones who feel these things. We're the only ones who feel this way because they're not sharing, so we're not sharing, so we're not being seen, they're not being seen, no one's being seen, no one is sharing. We wonder why our world is so fucked. Why we're totally cool to just like annihilate each other, literally, murder each other, rape each other, harm each other, because we're not seeing each other's humanity. It's so confusing. If we could see each other differently, we could see each other as expressing these emotions, expressing grief, expressing sadness, expressing pain, expressing loneliness, expressing a need for belonging and love and connection and spirituality and laughter and all of these things, I feel like we'd be in a bit of a better place. That's what brings true peace, is like seeing each other, Like, oh yeah, that's a human being as much as I am. And it's weird because we can't literally be in each other's shoes or be in each other's experiences. So we have to trust that the other person has ever experienced what we have. I think of going to the doctor or talking to a nurse and trying to explain a physical pain you have in your body. Is it sharp or shooting pain? Is it dull or is it a shooting pain? Is it muscular or how strange that we've found words to describe it, even though we are the only ones who have ever felt it in our own experience. I only know what a sharp shooting pain feels like from my experience. I assume that by definition and understanding and language and cognition that you experience sharp shooting pains in the same way I do, but there's no way to validate that ever. There's no objective experience of what that means. So there's this level of trust that we do not have in each other. And I get that. There is this weird experience of being human that you'll never know truly what the other person is thinking or feeling or experiencing. If you've traveled outside of your own country or culture, that's a really eye-opening experience to see other people living in the same way you do, that we all want shelter, we all need water, we all need food, we all have families, we have pets, we go to school, we love, we have sex, we reproduce, we give birth, we love our babies, we nurse our babies. I think that's why we can take advantage of other species or other resources because we don't see the connection with them. I saw a cow nursing her calf a few weeks ago, and I just kind of sat back and took in that experience because you don't often see that, especially with cows and calves. Our food system doesn't allow us to see that. That's kind of what it means to be part of this whole earthly experience, is to see in others what we experience ourselves to the best of our abilities. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we don't know. I've never been pregnant and given birth, so I don't know what that's like. Until that happens, if that happens, I will not be able to connect with my loved ones in that way and truly understand what that means. I can hear their stories, I can watch videos or see pictures or whatever, but I cannot step into that experience and know what it's like. And I just have to trust that what they're telling me is true unless I'm there. And even then, I'm only getting half of the story. Only getting the story through how I experience it. This is so fascinating to me because truly I don't use this term often, but I'm just downloading and sharing whatever is coming to my lips. But this reminds me a lot of my thesis. I will probably talk about my thesis a lot, not because there's, again, any like, oh, look at me, I did a thesis, I'm a master, but because it was a really cool experience and I learned a lot. I mentioned in the last episode that my thesis was around mental health and the lens or the filter through which people who brave mental health conditions experience communication with their loved ones. What I mean by that is if we're experiencing anxiety and or depression and we text a friend, we reach out to them for connection and they don't respond for a few hours because they're busy, our depression or our anxiety might say, ooh, that person hates you. You did something, you fucked up. There's no logic to it. It's not, they must be busy. It's, they hate me immediately. And then they respond and use a period instead of an exclamation mark. And it's like, oh shit, it's really that simple. But I explored it on a much bigger level. And I used a research methodology called interpretative phenomenological analysis, or IPA, like a good beer or a bad beer. I don't know. I'm not picky about beer. But what was really necessary for me to break down and research this topic was not looking at it from a quantitative lens. I did an analysis of people's blogs, and there was no quantitative measure. It wasn't like, oh, this person mentioned this word 70 times. It's not about numbers and stats. It was qualitative and subjective, and it needed a qualitative, subjective methodology to support it. And that's what IPA is. It's literally just, what is your lived experience? And the fact that that's a methodology is kind of funny to me because it's so basic. Why would we not be asking each other what our lived experiences are? Even more so, IPA takes it a step further and says that there's connection to the researcher's lived experience too. So it's not just about what I assume my subject's lived experience is, but what my lived experience of reading that is, or what my lived experience of reflecting or theorizing their lived experiences. So it's this whole chain of lived experience, and it makes us think in new ways. It makes us connect with people in new ways and reminds us that, to me, lived experience is all there is. That's all there is. That is really all the data you need. Mental health is something I am going to dig deep into in this podcast. To preface, I have been living with depression since I was 11 or 12, and that was the first time I was actually clinically diagnosed by a doctor and psychologist. The first time I clued in for myself that I had anxiety was probably about 10 years ago, and I had already gone, 15 years at that point, navigating the ups and downs of depression without anybody to really connect with who was also experiencing or also diagnosed with major depressive disorder. None of my friends or family that I know of, anyway, nobody who told me, has braved this mental health condition. on a long-term basis. Short-term, situational, of course, but not really long-term and with no reason. In 2015, I started becoming friends with somebody who actually did understand that experience, the experience of depression and the experience of anxiety, which helped me understand that what I was experiencing was anxiety because I didn't know that before. I actually thought my experience of anxiety was normal. I thought everybody did this. I thought everybody thought that their friends were mad at them when they didn't text them back right away. That's not true, apparently. We don't all think that. It was truly sharing those lived experiences with each other that helped me to better understand my own. And when my friend asked me one day how I was doing, and I said shitty, and they asked me why, and I said, I don't know. And they said, yeah, I get that. I was like, whoa, hold on. There's someone else in the world like this? One other person, just one, who feels this way? That I no longer have to try to rationalize this to, that I can just sit and be with in these shitty, messy emotions and be seen and be loved and be cared for. That was fucking revelatory. I had not up until that point experienced that connection with somebody. That was deeply important. It should not have taken me that long to find someone else in the crosshairs of all of the human beings that I had ever met in my life who had experienced this in the same way I did. I don't think it's because no one else experienced it. I think it's because no one else talked about it, or the people I did talk about it with was so small that we normalized it. And not to say these feelings are not normal, but um there was no need to dig deeper because there was this normalcy to it. There was no need to heal because there was this normalcy. I remember the time I had my first true anxiety attack. I was having trouble breathing. I was crying. I'm pretty sure I just sat in the shower crying and hyperventilating, and like there was no pulling me out of this experience. And after I came through that, I somehow found the strength to reach out to people because I think it was my first real sense of awareness of like, this is not good. This might be anxiety, not just worry. So I reached out to a couple of friends. You experience anxiety, right? Yep, I would say so. What do you do to resolve that? Journal, meditate, yoga, eat well, have a tea? Wait a second. Are we talking about anxiety in the same way? Are we talking about like sitting in the tub, naked, panicking, crying, unable to breathe? Because yoga and carrots are not the first thing I'm thinking of when that's happening. I think I reached out to 5 friends, and 4 out of 5 friends gave me responses like that. No shame on them, that was their experience. I was not articulate enough in what I meant by anxiety. This was my first time experiencing an anxiety attack, so I could not really put words to it. What I asked was, have you ever experienced anxiety? What do you do? They all gave me quite logical answers for their perspective and their experience. It was this one friend who said, deep breaths. They have some breathing exercises from my therapist. It was the experience of that connection and knowing that just one other person in this world that I knew and trusted had experienced, maybe not sitting in the tub naked crying, but had experienced this kind of physical sensation that I was feeling. And I mean, ultimately, that friendship and that connection is what led me to my whole thesis. And I think it is really this foundational thing to vulnerability. There was vulnerability on my friend's part to say, yeah, man, I have, and this is what I do. And there was vulnerability on my part to reach out and be like, hey, have you ever experienced this? Taking a tiny baby step here, those 10 seconds of courage to reach out to somebody I love and say like, ooh, fuck, I'm naked in the tub crying. Have you ever been naked in the tub crying too? It's been 9 or 10 years since that happened. I think where would I be without that reciprocated vulnerability? My vulnerability was not enough for 4 out of 5 of my friends. Again, no shit on them. I was not clear enough. I could not be clear enough. I could not be articulate because I didn't really know what I was going through. But that's what I mean when I say it takes someone to receive your vulnerability, for you to feel that feeling of validation and connection. I don't think it would have been enough for me to just like Google anxiety attack and or WebMD that shit, which I love to do, I'm sure would have told me I had some kind of cancer. But that would not have been enough to just read it on a screen and be like, oh, okay, millions of other people feel this. It's a WebMD diagnosis. It must be legit. I'm a normal human being to an extent. I have anxiety. I'm going to go get meds for this. We're going to figure this out. That was not enough. Don't get me wrong. It's vulnerable to drop into a Google search. What the fuck is wrong with me right now? But it was that reciprocity that I needed, probably more so than anything. I don't know that I really needed to know my friend had ever experienced this, but that there was I was being seen, and we can see each other and be seen without having to have the experience. I can offer the experience of being seen to my friends who have had babies without having a baby myself. But there is something deeply connective about someone who has had that experience. I have no doubt that my friends who have had babies can connect with each other much differently than I can with them, and that's okay. It's finding those people and then being vulnerable enough to share. And that's where I am so confused as to how vulnerability or being vulnerable has been defined as a weakness or something that puts us at risk. I mean, it is fucking terrifying, but it's not a weakness. It's an incredible strength, actually. It's an incredible strength to be vulnerable. And it takes practice. It's learned. It shouldn't be. It should not be learned. It should be as natural as falling asleep when we're tired. But it's learned because we have learned to repress it. And now we have to learn to share it. So it's deeply courageous. It's deeply brave. It's an ask. It's an ask to be seen. Can you see me in this mess? Can you love me in this mess? If we were in the same space and I was crying in the tub, could you come and sit with me? It's a request. It takes a yes on the other person's part, and it's deeply brave from both sides to make the request and to say yes. And I think that experience really helped me lean into that a little bit by bit, slowly. Having been diagnosed with depression as a teenager at 12, 13, in carry the one, doing some quick math here, 2001. And I'm thinking, the internet space of 2000 or 2001 was Zanga and Nexopia and LiveJournal and MySpace and MSN Messenger. And I remember making bids for connection in those ways. My MSN Messenger status. I think actually at one point I made it, and probably in like alternating caps and lowercase, like the squiggly at the front. Diagnosis depression. I'm about 99% sure that was my MSN name or my MSN status, my Messenger status at one point. And I think back to my experience of being that age and still what we say today to kids who are hurting, kids who are acting out, kids who might be harming themselves or posting sad shit. I just want attention. Yeah, I do. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I would like to be seen. We all want to be seen. Our world has not created safety in being seen, and so we don't offer it to others because we don't know what it feels like to be safe and be seen. We want to quiet babies when they cry. We want to tell toddlers not to yell. We want to tell kids not to say certain things or to hold in their feelings, or that they're too sensitive, or they need a thicker skin, or like we condition ourselves in this way. So no wonder we don't feel safe asking to be seen, and we don't feel safe seeing others because that's just not the kind of space we've created. So how do we flip that narrative? It's just piece by piece. I remember posting Instagram captions and people saying to me, "You're so vulnerable. I love it. I wish I could be as vulnerable as you." Look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just sharing because I have to get it off my heart. And it was incredibly awkward because I worked with almost all of the people who followed me on these social media platforms. So it's not like it was strangers who were reading my shit and sending me love. It was people I knew and worked with and didn't even know that well, but it would pass in the hallway. You've posted this deeply vulnerable thing and they send you this beautiful message and then you just pass each other in the hallway like, hey. There's still this anonymity or disconnection to it because at no point was I sitting with those people in person and sharing my story or asking them theirs. So even I have a ways to go. I'm doing this through a one-way communication channel. I'm not having a two-way dialogue with anybody right now. So no one can tell me I'm wrong. If anybody doesn't like it, they can just stop listening. But it's a step. It's a tiny, tiny baby step. And of course, why would we want to be vulnerable when there is risk? There is risk of not being seen. There is risk of putting it all out there and someone coming to you and shitting all over it. That's happened to me. Like I said, probably 95% of the people who followed me on social media were people I worked with. Some were very good friends and we were very close, and they would not have been surprised to read what they read, to read what I wrote. Some of them we were work acquaintances and you just find each other on social media. I remember having posted something fairly vulnerable on my Instagram, and I was at the office the next day in the cafeteria, and a work acquaintance stopped me and was like, oh, I saw your post, and made a joke about, I don't even remember, something about what a princess I am or something like that. And I immediately shut down. And I remember thinking, fuck, I am never doing this again. Not just take him off my Instagram, not just remove him, fuck him, but never again. Not doing that. I don't care how many kind, connective, seen comments or interactions I had. It was one asshole who thought he was so funny making a comment I did not appreciate, did not ask for, on something that was extremely vulnerable and brave and courageous, that set the whole thing on fire and shut me down completely. Vulnerability for people who are not used to it makes them uncomfortable. And don't get me wrong, I am the first person to laugh or make a joke in an uncomfortable situation or to not feel my feelings. I'll be the first person to make a joke. The deepest, darkest, most fucked up jokes. But that was really hurtful. And it came from someone I didn't know very well, someone who had not earned that type of connection. They had not earned through trust and love and friendship the right to make that kind of joke or that kind of comment. Someone else who had earned it, maybe, but he had not. And this reminds me of a Brene Brown quote that I'm going to paraphrase, that not everybody has earned the right to your story. Not everyone has earned the right to your heart, to your vulnerability. And while I think that's true, it feels a bit conflicting and a bit counteractive to what I'm saying, which is that sharing little bits and little pieces at a time can help us build that muscle. But yeah, if you are just learning to flex the vulnerability muscle, then keeping it to the people you truly trust is what's going to help to build that muscle, build that strength. And it's not to say close yourself off from the world. Uh, there will always be people who feel they get to comment on what you share. But I think in the experience of sharing with people who have earned it, with people who can see you, with people who can reciprocate, you learn to not care about the people who cannot. And maybe those people can with their people. Maybe it's just not with you. I wish it were true that in our world today we could be as vulnerable and open with how we're feeling as we are about the weather. I deliver Meals on Wheels every week to a predominantly older generation than me. There is one client I deliver to that we have a really great connection, but the other 9 or 10 is quite surface level. If it's anything beyond, hi, how are you? Here's your meal. Thank you. Enjoy. Goodbye. The weather. And something connected to the weather So today is Monday. I delivered Meals on Wheels today. We've had quite a bit of rain here. So one person I delivered to today said, hey, how are you? Good. How are you? Staying dry. Yep. In the summer when it's hot, they ask me if I have air conditioning. And in the winter when it's cold, they ask me if I have heat in the car, or if I have snow tires, or if I'm comfortable driving on the ice. It's interesting because it is a bid for connection with something for sure the other person is experiencing, because we live in the same community. So we are experiencing the same weather. And I thought about this today. Why are we always asking each other about the weather? I think it is just a bid for connection because for sure the other person has experienced it. It is a common experience. So that's what we're looking for in being vulnerable, and making bids for connection is some kind of common experience, a common lived experience. I just wish we could go beyond the weather. I wish we didn't have to dig through all of the surface stuff to get to what's really important. But ultimately, that's what it is, right? A bid for connection, a little bit of vulnerability. Even the woman at the post office today, we had our, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. Yeah. And then I was waiting for the other person to grab my package, and I'd already asked her how she was. But I said, so how are you? Oh yeah, I'm good. Well, I'm a little sad. My son's moving away to Alberta. Yeah, that is sad. Something she would not have told me had I not asked her again how she was doing. But we have sort of this auto reply in place when someone asks us how we are. Oh, I'm good. How are you? I'm good. Anything other than that is, hold on. What are you doing here? I didn't really want to know how you are. This took a bit of a turn. I wasn't expecting. I didn't really know where this was going to go. And I wasn't expecting to, my God, Megan, Laura, I'm really about to say this. I was not expecting to be so vulnerable so quickly on this podcast. Oh, the universe is laughing. I really thought I was going to ease into this topic and maybe not mental health bomb on episode 3, but here we are. And I'm walking the walk and stepping into vulnerability. When I was almost 17, I was part of a church youth group, and we went to Argentina on a missions trip. Very different time in my life. And the age range of kids who were on the trip was, say, 13 to 17. I had now been navigating depression for 5 or 6 years. I was by no means an expert in it. I still am not, but I remember sharing my experience of it with a girl who was a few years younger than me and was sort of newly experiencing depression. I remember nothing else, but there was something about my sharing of my story with her that either her or someone else said to me, part of the experience of going through something like that, of mental health, of heartbreak, of grief, of any of those generally shitty emotions, is that you can be someone who demonstrates strength through that, grace under fire. And I must have been sharing something about my experience. I must have been vulnerable enough to do that at that time, because there was this acknowledgement of that and this gratitude for sharing, for her to know she was not alone. The other thing that has always stuck with me from that trip was I am not fluent in Spanish. So naturally, there was a language barrier while we were there. I think back to a comment I made earlier about bids for connection or vulnerability, not just through verbal language, but through nonverbal body language. And this was a true experience of that with one of the older gentlemen there, my Argentinian grandpa. He did not speak English. I did not speak Spanish. We somehow laughed and made a connection. And I remember walking away from that as somebody who loves love, who loves to say, I love you, who seeks that connection. I had found it with him, even though we could not tell each other. And it was this grandparent-grandchild kind of relationship. And I do just remember walking away and saying, it's wild that this person knows that I love them, even though I haven't been able to tell them. Because for me, at the time, it was really important that I say the words I love you for someone to know that I love them. And I have not always been articulate or brave enough to tell people that, even up until present day. but it reminded me through my actions that we can express love without having to say the words, I love you. And it gave me validation as somebody who liked to say I love you all the time. And as someone who did not always get the response, I love you too. Or as someone who was told, you say I love you too much. It was a good reminder that I don't always have to say it. I don't always have to be told I love you too for it to still be true. And I think that's a bit of the power of vulnerability, a bit of the power of human connection. There are so many people, positive psychology, self-improvement, self-development, spiritual people who say, if you're listening to this, I love you. I don't know who you are, but I love you. That feels so, I remember thinking the first time I heard that, probably about 10 years ago, thinking, but you don't even know me. You don't know how fucked up I am. There is this important component to love. It is unconditional. You can have it for people you don't like or get along with. In just a empathetic way, they are a human being going through human experiences, just like me kind of way. In a they don't know what they're doing as much as I don't know what I'm doing kind of way. I think that helps create safety for vulnerability, safety to be seen, safety to be heard, safety to see and hear others, creating safe spaces for people. Not always easy. And funny how much harder it probably is, harder it is for me to be vulnerable when I'm face to face with someone that I love. It's much easier through a screen or through a phone or through a text. So it's weird that, like, even though you have this deep connection with somebody, when you see them, it's not always getting to that level of connection. Mm. I miss my people. So I'm gonna leave this in because it's an expression of my vulnerability. Most people hate it. It's hard to watch someone else cry and not immediately say, no, 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 don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Getting to the heart of this, see, brings me back. Putting the kittens back in the box, as an old colleague of mine used to say. Getting to the heart of this. Vulnerability. Powerful. It's very powerful. And if you're not in a space right now where you're vulnerable with those you love or you're vulnerable with people, that's okay. As the saying goes, it takes 10 seconds of courage, and that can be enough to practice. It's like practicing a musical instrument or building a muscle, lifting weights little by little. It does get less terrifying. This is terrifying, but it's less terrifying than it probably would have been 10 years ago before I understood the power of vulnerability, the power of emotional honesty. But it is just sharing how we are showing up in the world, what is truly happening in here, how we're truly feeling. And our world is not set up for this. We are not set up to receive vulnerability. If we were, it would not be so fucking terrifying because we would all be used to it. We would all be doing it all the time, but we're not. And that's not a sign or a reflection of you. It's a reflection of the world we've created, generally speaking, as a society. There is no room for emotions here. There's no crying in baseball. What is that from, by the way? I have no idea what it's from. It's such a natural response. It's something we want and crave so deeply, and yet we don't know how to get it, and we don't know how to receive it, and we don't know how to sit and be with people when they need to share it because it makes us cringy or uncomfortable or, oh, fuck, don't cry. I hate watching people cry. I hate hearing that you're sad. I mean, I do hate hearing that people I love are sad because I want to fix it, but it is part of the experience of being a human. There's no human being on this planet in all of existence who has not experienced sadness. And yet it's such a cringy, shameful emotion to feel sad or feel depressed. It's not. It's normal. It's normal. Even if you don't know why, there's probably a reason. You probably have to heal and dig a little bit, excavate a little bit. How do we create safety for people? How do we initiate safety? I don't know why I'm asking myself a question I don't truly know the answer to, but not trying to solve. We don't always have to fix things. It is okay that other people experience emotions, and shitty ones. Feel shitty, and as empaths, we often take it on. But it is okay and normal and natural to feel these emotions. The best we can do to create safety, I think, is step into bravery in our own moment. Because if there's anything I can tell anybody about depression who has never experienced it before, it's that your brain is like, absolutely fuck no, we are not talking to anybody. We're not reaching out. We're not posting. We're not Snapchatting. We're not doing anything because we're depressed, and depression tells us no one loves us. And any fact that counters that quote unquote truth is detrimental to this feeling of depression. So reaching out in that moment is absolutely nothing short of the bravest fucking thing you can do. Against all logic, against all feelings, against everything your dickhole brain is telling you, is absolutely the bravest thing in the world. And if you can recognize in yourself how brave that is, then you can create safety when someone else tells you that's how they're feeling. They're the ones experiencing the bravery. They're the ones taking the leap of courage. It's up to you to just receive and see, receive and validate, receive and love. Receive and reciprocate. That's okay. I love you. I have experienced that too. That is so shitty. You're not alone. I'm here. If I were physically with you, I would just come and sit on the couch with you. We can laugh if you want. Or up for a joke. Do you want to just sit in this? Do you want to FaceTime? And we can just be quiet with each other. Mostly what people need in those moments are just acknowledgement. Even to say, I have not experienced that before, but that must be so shitty. I can imagine. What it does is create opportunities for bravery down the road for both of you. You as the recipient see, holy fuck, wow, that person was courageous. What can I do to also be that brave? And that person who had the excruciating bravery of going against everything their body is telling them and reaching out has a file now that they can file away as proof that it works, of proof that vulnerability offers us what we need, allows us to be seen, allows us to be loved. Even in the mess, even in the chaos, even in the clusterfuckery of it all, we can still be loved. We are loved. We love each other through all of these moments. We just don't know it because we're not sharing. We don't know that the other person is feeling shitty because they're not telling us, and that's okay. But what if you just had 10 seconds? Just 10 seconds to be brave. What could that do for you? It could just dim the light just a tad, like 2%, and then you let a little more light in, and then 2% more. It's so powerful what safety can do. Maybe I'll put out an invitation I've put out before in some time and space. I am a safe space. I am a safe space. I can be someone who sees you and sits with you in what you're feeling and going through. So if you need a safe space, you haven't found one yet, and you want to practice vulnerability in a safe space, let me know. Send me a text or a DM. Let's practice. And then through the power of practice, it becomes more natural. And we expand our capacity for vulnerability and receiving vulnerability to our loved ones, to our kids, and it expands through generations, through cultures, through time. So that's, I guess, my invitation. If you need it, I'm a safe space. This is a safe space. This podcast is a safe space. And like, vulnerability is a thread here. I don't know why I'm so surprised that I'm being so vulnerable on this third episode. I was vulnerable back in episode 1. I recorded that a week ago. That's the whole fucking point of this podcast, because it's not out there. It's hard to find. It's hard to find safety. We need to create it and then feel it and experience it, because it makes us want to create it for others. So that's my invitation, something for you to reflect on. Getting to the heart of this is vulnerability is ultimately human connection. It's what we need, and it's not what our society offers us right now, but we can create a space, a society where talking about our emotions is as common as talking about the weather. Did it rain this weekend? Did you cry this weekend? Is it sunny there? Are you feeling happy? Is it cloudy? Are you feeling sad? And truly just like allowing that. We don't always allow space for those emotions. We have to fix it. We have to change it. We have to numb it. So it's an allowing the other person to feel those emotions and allowing ourselves to feel them with ourselves, with one person, just one person who creates safety for us. So be that safe space. Let people know you are a safe space. The best way to do that is to like walk the walk and talk the talk and be a little vulnerable to let people know that you're a safe space and that there's so much power and strength and bravery in vulnerability. Fuck the typical definition of some kind of threat or weakness in the system. It's strength. Vulnerability is the solution. It is the patch. It's not the hole. It's the patch. God damn. Inspiring myself. Okay. Thank you, my loves, for joining me. I hope you have again felt some kind of connection through this. If you need a safe space, send me a message. Let me be your person or your 10 seconds of bravery. That's all it takes. Thank you for being my safe space, because you are. That's all for now. I will see you next time. Goodbye, my loves.